So I'm going to get a bit into the left hand now. The left hand is more ambiguous, a little more complex, just because it's not as natural as the right hand. So I want to start with the fulcrum. The fulcrum is very similar to the right with this connection, this kind of thumb to pointer finger connection. Still kind of the same knuckle wrapping over the stick. Now, this is where the stick is going to rotate. This is very important for our sound, very important for the velocity that we want to get from our strokes. As you can see, if you pull the stick up with just the fulcrum, your fulcrum wants to push the stick back down into the set position. This is really the idea of the motion that we want from this specifically. Now, the right middle finger is very similar to the left middle finger in that it's supportive, like we talked about, and it gives us a lot of strength and support with our strokes. Because these fingers and this unit, this group of fingers is on top of the stick, it gives us a lot of leeway to push down into the head. Whereas with the right hand, you're kind of using your wrist, which we'll get into later, but you're using your fingers kind of as a pull. The left hand is more of a push, if you can see that. So kind of think about this unit, these three fingers pushing down into the head. That's where these really come into play. Obviously you get into rolls and you're still pushing into the head, just a kind of different approach, more pressure. We'll get more into that later. But along with this unit, we have this group of fingers, kind of the same that we talked about on the right hand. We have these back fingers or these bottom fingers on the left hand that give us a lot of support, they give us control. The big question in this activity is, do we keep these fingers on the stick, or do we keep these fingers on the stick all the time? Now, it's going to be different groups that you march in, different people that you're being taught by, but I would say personally that I've found the bottom fingers to be a great help for anything that I play. So obviously you don't want to over squeeze and have too much contact, too much pressure, but you do want contact without pressure to keep an open sound. Now, the question really is for harder parts, quicker flams, doubles, singles, is do we keep the fingers on? Do we kind of let them relax to help us? Now, I would say that this really doesn't help us as much as we glorify or think that it does. So really, I found that taking my fingers off the stick causes so much more tension, and it makes my playing more difficult, because the more that you take your fingers off, that's just more energy that you're putting into these muscles that goes down here into these, that just follows all the way through your arm. If I'm taking my fingers off, I'm using more energy than I really need to. Even if I have relaxed fingers and they're still touching the stick, that relaxation is going to be way more comfortable, way less use of energy and really muscle. It's going to help me play longer, help me get through phrases with more ease. I think this is very important, and even bottom fingers at higher strokes, I think can help us a lot, just to control where the stick is going all the time, whether it's straight up and down, or you take your fingers off, you kind of can get more slice, less control of where you're placing the bead to the head and where your bead is hitting at the top of your stroke. That's really where my bottom fingers have helped me a lot. People have different ideas about this. That's just my perspective. I think that the bottom fingers really can be used for anything we play. If you think, oh man, this is really fast, this is really hard, this might be easier if I take my bottom fingers off, or I can't even play this with my bottom fingers on if I tried. The reality is you probably can. You probably can keep your fingers on, and if you work like just a little harder at it, you'll be able to keep them on. It'll help you a lot with sound, rhythms, everything, consistency. because that's just really what we're going for, is consistency. You take your fingers off, you have more questions, more variables in your playing than if you just keep a relaxed grip, keep those fingers on. And yeah, that's really the left hand with the fingers. Kind of same thing, same idea with two units. These 3 stronger fingers, and then these 2 supportive, less strong fingers that will help a lot. So that's a little bit about fingers, about the use of fingers, how they'll help us. And obviously take what I say with your own perspective and your own thought process. Find what works for you, what is going to look the best, feel the best, and ultimately sound the best, because that's what we're always going for. It's great sounds.